Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Experts Live India podcast. My name is Samir, and today I'm joined by Priti. Priti and I, we are colleagues at work, and we work together sometimes. Priti, I think you are more into the sales, pre-sales. Is it only Microsoft Azure Hybrid Cloud, or is it also VMware?
It's VMware. So based on various outcome, what customer is looking, we have various solution. And my view, especially here in Dell, takes care of all the solution what we have in our portfolio, with related to hybrid and private cloud.
Nice. So that is Microsoft and VMware and Nutanix.
Yeah, Nutanix as well as multi-hypervisor. There are some customer who doesn't want to make a single choice or get into locked
Right.
into one particular vendor. So in that case, they look for a solution which can host a broader spectrum, and
Right.
we have a solution around that as well at Dell Technologies.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so I am more on the Microsoft side. So if Preeti has a client or an interest in Microsoft Hybrid Cloud, that is where we work together towards making the hybrid cloud happen. Okay, so of course by now you must have guessed what the topic of today is. So today we are going to talk about the hybrid cloud. So we are talking about Azure and Microsoft and VMware a lot today, but that doesn't mean that we're going to restrict only to this, right? But we're just gonna,
Yeah,
on a
exactly.
high level, we're going to talk about what clouds are and why would you want to go for an hybrid, what are the use cases and stuff.
It's more like getting to know the various terms, terminologies, and the concept, and then also delve into a little bit of solution what there in the market.
Right. All right, perfect. So without further ado, let's get started then. So Preeti, so before we talk about the hybrid cloud itself, let's take a step back and talk about just the clouds, right?
Each organization is part by the application they own to drive their business outcomes or the business values. And these applications run on top of certain hardware infrastructure. And now these customers want to have this infrastructure available over the network and on demand, and they need that flexibility and that agility to be built in the hardware. As and when the demand grows, they want to grow their infrastructure at pace without going through the entire sales cycle of reaching out to various vendors, take the codes, get into the procurement. So I think that's where we see the cloud computing becoming such a hit, where the cloud providers are providing this whole solution, the computing solution over the internet as and when the customer request.
Yeah, absolutely. So above everything, I think it's just the convenience of running resources or being
Exactly.
able to scale up and scale out, quickly as the business demands.
Exactly. It's the convenience, and as well as it let people focus on their core business rather than spending a lot money time and just managing the infrastructure or the hardware.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So again, like you said, so I've heard this term a lot, and I think it's rather interesting. Is that people are trying to, or organizations are trying to move away from IT, in the sense that they don't want to spend a lot of their time and energy into managing or purchasing infrastructure, like you said. They don't want to keep on banging all the different vendor stores and ask them for, can you give me server, can you give me storage, can you give me, a hosting platform or whatever. They don't want to spend any time or energy for that. What they want to just do is go to a cloud provider and they will just solve all their problems at once, right? So what you do is just hit this URL, Azure portal. You go there, just click maybe 10 times different, 10 different times, and you get like 10 different wizards. Bam, 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 click, 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 and you have a virtual machine.
Yeah.
So that's just very convenient. It's also, since it is not your responsibility to maintain it, you're also not spending any time, energy, cost, or man force, right? You're not spending your own resources into maintaining, troubleshooting, nothing. So that gives the flexibility, I think, just to spin up and destroy any resources they want as they want.
Yeah, it's fast, it's scalable, it's agile, and moreover, you need not also look for renting a place to put your data center where
Yeah.
you
That is too. That too. Yeah. Again, running a data center is not easy. It's
That's
not cheap. Certainly not cheap. Because running a data center, not only the servers, but also the networks, the cooling system, the space itself, the
the
physical space,
security part of it, both
the
physical
power,
and
security, everything. It's absolutely a lot of cost and effort that goes there. So that is the main reason a lot of companies are also moving on to public clouds, as we call them. So there's also some different kinds of clouds, right? So there are also public clouds, there are private clouds, and then of course there's multi clouds, and the hybrid cloud today, of course. Um, so public cloud, what do you? So private cloud, I think so. Keep me correct if I'm wrong here. In my understanding of private cloud is that you have the ecosystem, but you're running it on your premise, right? So how I understand it. So I come from a Microsoft background, and so do you. I think. Are you? Have you worked with other non-Microsoft technologies before?
yes, I have worked with non-Microsoft technology. So, just to add what you said, Samir, about the private cloud, it's not only on premises; it can be a colo setup itself.
Right.
The main concept, or the crisp way we can put it, is the private cloud is one which is only owned or dedicated to a single organization.
Single organization.
Because
Right.
in public cloud, it's more of a multi-tenancy concept. So it's
Yeah.
a, you can take an analogy of a bus and your own private car. So private car
Right.
is something is your private cloud, and a bus or maybe a train could be a something we
Yeah.
can drive an analogy to the public cloud.
Yeah, that is a great analogy actually. So in a public cloud, you are sharing resources with other organizations, other companies, but private cloud, everything is dedicated to you. So then, what are public clouds? So we have touched upon public clouds. Public clouds is where you share resources with other companies. But when I say share, do you mean I'm sharing one virtual machine with other
No, of course
organizations?
not that. It may be that you have this hardware, and that hardware is hosting multiple virtual machines. So there would be certain virtual machine which is dedicated to certain organization, and there would be certain virtual machine which would be dedicated to another organization. So that's the concept. So definitely there is a virtual isolation which is between the various organization infrastructure.
Correct. So when you say sharing resources, you're not sharing the actual virtual machines or workloads. You are just sharing the underlying infrastructure. That's just the platform, and there is the segregation. There is the boundaries, isolation, like you said, between the tenants, as they call them. So you have a different tenant. You may be sharing infrastructure with another other tenant, but still it's your workload. It's still your virtual machine or whatever.
I think one of very good example which I can give is of a hotel. So hotel has multiple rooms, right? And
Correct.
you have your own private room. No one can enter your room without your permission. But then the housekeeping, the other things you are sharing with other
Yeah,
customers as well who
the
are residing
lobby,
there. So
the
similarly
restaurant.
with the public cloud, you have your own privacy, but then yes, the building, the common resources you have been sharing with other as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it brings us the cost benefit, and obviously, if you have more members from your family joining you for a short term, you can book more rooms and make it available to them in your hotel. So,
absolutely amazing. So, what are hybrid clouds then, right? So, the common sense would say, the obvious definition would say that okay, it's hybrid, so that must mean that it is some public and some private. But then what does that mean? So is my is my estate on cloud entirely different, or is it isolated from my estate in private, or can I have some connection between my private and public estates?
yeah, so I think a person who is just getting introduced to the cloud, what you said and what you put is absolutely correct. It's just a private and a public entity which has to work in together. And what most of us don't get it, that just having a private cloud and a public cloud running as a separated entity doesn't actually make private cloud work. So you need to have a consistent operation and consistent infrastructure to make this two work together so that your application can move from one place to another without much of the challenges.
Right.
And that's where hybrid cloud comes and bring in the benefit, right? Because you want to have the best of both worlds and utilize it as
Yeah.
per your need. Yeah.
Yes, so that is something that I really agree with you on. So that you have to make the best of both worlds. Public clouds go back. I think when did the public cloud was first launched? Was it like 20 what now? 2010, 2011, or when was the
I
when
think
did the public cloud really
AWS was one of the first public
first
cloud
ones?
vendor,
Yeah.
and it was somewhere around 2006 or 2007. We can Google it and check what was the year.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, that's so. So the point being that the public clouds are way older than I think than the
I know.
hybrid concept today.
Yeah.
Hybrid concept is more of a recent concept, I'd say, comparatively recent.
Yeah.
When the public cloud came out, or the concept of public cloud, the benefits and features of public cloud, everyone was making the move to public cloud. Again, Amazon, when Microsoft Azure came out, as Azure gained popularity, Microsoft. So again, I'll speak in terms of Microsoft because that's where I come from, but this applies to more or less all the other vendors as well, right? So when Microsoft came out with Azure, um, the whole preaching was cloud, 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 right? So move everything to cloud, move to cloud as soon as possible. Cloud is magic, apparently, right? So there was a lot of push, sending people to cloud, encouraging them to migrate to cloud. And with the recent rise of hybrid clouds, even Microsoft today is saying that no, 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 hang on, you can't move everything to cloud actually.
Yeah.
So you have to keep something on your prem.
Sure.
So why do you think that thing has kind of I won't say flipped, but it has kind of adjusted or modified the message that you can't put everything on public cloud, but you also have to have some workload still working on prem.
Yeah. So I think somewhere around 2012, 13, public cloud really gained a lot of popularity in the market, even though it existed before that, because of the marketing what they did, pay as you go model, no
Right.
capex, everything operational. There's a lot of agility, scalability, and all good things in the world seem to be there in the public cloud. But very soon, customer realized that it's not pay as you go, but pay as you have configured. So if you have not configured public cloud
Yeah.
properly, then you end up paying more in the public cloud as well. And
Yeah.
they also realize that it's not that all my legacy workload can also bring or utilize the public cloud to its best. And that's where I think they realize that no, 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 no. Public cloud is not the only thing which will suffice my need or my business application need, because they cannot let go all their application, the legacy application, or just lift and shift to public cloud and make use of it. So maybe slowly they have realized that there's some workload which will fit best in the private setup, and there would be some workload which doesn't have a fixed kind of peak, right? Which peaks with different time zones, time of the day or the week or the month and the year. Maybe they fits better on the public cloud. And the secondly, I think a lot of compliance reasons, and also the latency issues, because there's some application you cannot have application running on a different zone and region, and then you can have your user sitting in a different zone and region and trying to access it, because that doesn't work. So all this reason would have led this customers and organization to rethink their cloud first strategy. And now when we say cloud first strategy, it's not only the public cloud what we mean. We mean that we want to bring more balanced approach to our cloud strategy these days. And I think that's why you see, right? I was just going through one of the report which says that in 2019 there was public cloud or the hybrid clouds market was somewhere around 45 billion, which would grow by next 4 times in next 5 to 6 years.
Yeah,
That's
that
huge,
is quite
because a
interesting.
lot of organizations are realizing that importance of hybrid cloud.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because even I remember I said that, okay, Microsoft is pushing, or Microsoft is kind of falling back on their word, is that you can't really put everything on cloud. I just realized that I'm actually also one of them, because when I was in my previous company, we used to sell a dashboarding product that was based on Azure Monitor, so all the logs and everything. So the more people or the more organizations moved on to cloud, that was the more market or the more audience that was for us to kind of target our sales towards. But then when I moved to Dell, um, I moved to more hybrid portfolio, right? So then I started telling people, hey, you know what? Hang on, you can't really go, you can't make that shift all to cloud yet. You still may want to keep something on-prem. Um, Sometimes I wonder, is it, am I being, two-faced about, just saying, telling things that are suiting me? But that's actually not the case, because
Exactly.
there is a use case for everything, and not every use case is for everyone.
Yeah. And it's
So
we have very valid reasons of adopting this approach of hybrid cloud, right? And we see this market growing. It's not that only a very smaller section is looking into hybrid cloud, but it's actually the larger market or the larger piece what is looking at the hybrid cloud these days.
yeah, absolutely. Um, and so moving to a more hybrid cloud approach is also not something that you can do overnight, right? So you have to plan your strategy. Moving to hybrid cloud also sometimes also gives you the opportunity to refresh your infrastructure, refresh your data center, right? Or to modernize your data center, as we call it. Um, so data centers today, they are three tiers in the most commonly. So you have compute tier, network tier, and the storage layer. As part of hybrid, a lot of hybrid solutions today are also moving towards HCIs, right? So what is HCI? Hyperconverged infrastructure. How does that differ from a standard three-tier SAN infrastructure, and why would you want to move to HCI?
Okay. So, as you said, right, our legacy infrastructure could be from multiple vendor or it could be from single vendor as well. But to manage all this three layer, you need specialists from all three departments. And it becomes very complex, right? Even if one component go for a patching or upgrading, you need to check the interoperability of entire component or the entire stack. With hyperconverged, what the industry has come with is they have combined the server storage networking into a single unit. And on top of that, they have ensured that there's a software defined layer which is sitting and making these things work together. So it becomes much more easier. Now it's just one unit where you get your compute or the processing part and you also get the storage, and then there is a software layer. So once we have the software layer coming in, right, that means the innovation is much more faster, it's
Absolutely.
more agile in nature. Any feature, any capability is being shipped to market very soon. And thirdly, with this particular model, right, you have that scalability and the agility of the public cloud, because you just bring in the extra node in that cluster, right, and you boost up the performance and the capacity of the infrastructure. So you did not think about, okay, if I bring another storage, how my server would impact. It's
Right.
just everything into a single unit, giving you the outcome what you want.
Right. And I think it's also easier for an HCI node cluster to scale out.
Yeah.
Right. So you don't have, like you perfectly said, that you don't have to worry about the compatibility between different components. Hey, if I add another SAN device to this, will it be compatible with my server? Right. So you don't have to do that because it's already been done. So these are validated or engineered solutions. So these are, all these tests have extensively been already been done by the vendor. So if you just want to add another node, all you do is just purchase another node and just your existing cluster. So there are capabilities. I know in Dell with Open Manage integration, you can just go ahead and automatically expand your cluster. The cluster, the software itself will discover the new node. It will, prep it in whatever ways that is required. It will make sure that it is compliant, and then it will just absorb that node, right? So it will absorb that new storage capacity, and the underlying storage pool, the software defined layer that you said, will automatically, absorb the new capacity of storage, and it will just be one single solution again. So HCI is definitely the way to go. So let me ask you this question. So hybrid, we say hybrid, we say some on public, some on private. And there's the connection, there's the consistency between the operating model of both the estates, right? So what is that connection? So how do you connect your on-prem with cloud resources? Or what kind of once you make that connection, what are the services or what are the benefits of cloud that you can utilize on your prem?
Okay. So I think it completely depends on what kind of solution we are looking at, right? So if we specifically talk about the Microsoft, I think Microsoft Azure Arc is that common, consistent experience what delivers to our customer when we are talking about the hybrid. Similarly, if there's a customer who is more VMware focused or they need an outcome which is more VMware focused, then we have something called VCF, which is called VMware Cloud Foundation, which can also run in your private cloud setup. And we have this VCF or are running on various public cloud as well. So, and again, you can think about the various network connectivity from the physical per se. You can think about VPN, you can have a dedicated line, or you can also have a public line being used for the moving your application from one platform to another if it's not of a high risk data what you're transferring, or you can look into the dedicated. But the key thing is that software stack which extend from private to public cloud, so that once you're moving your data from one platform to another, right, you can move it seamlessly without any downtime and with very minimal rewrites. And that's what we are trying to achieve with the hybrid cloud. If you can add more to what Azure Arc has to offer.
Not just in terms of Azure Arc, but something that just came into my mind is, so there are different ways to make use of hybrid cloud, right? So you can keep your premises on prem, sorry, you can keep your infrastructure on prem, applications on prem, and you can keep a copy of it on cloud. That is also one of the most common use cases I think I see when we speak of hybrid cloud. So you have an application. So there's something called Azure Backup or Azure Site Recovery. So what you can do is host everything on prem, install the Azure Arc Agent like you said, and then connect it to your Azure tenant, and then you'll be able to use that ASR service just to take a backup of or spin up a replica of that machine on cloud. Right? So if something happens on your on-prem, if that machine goes down, you have a copy available in cloud.
And you can recover it.
And
And
you can
there's some users who use their entire application on the private cloud, and they use public cloud as a place where they can extend the workforce if it needs to grow.
yeah.
Flexibility. So for the flexibility per se, they may use it. And also, I've seen a lot of customers who are running these services on public cloud because there's so many services available, but they keep the data on-prem. So that could be also one of the use case because the data is closer to the users and you are just using maybe once in a while if you have to run a report or a query, you can run it on the public cloud and the data can be fetched from the private or the on-premises infrastructure.
Yeah, absolutely. So that works in both ways. You can run your applications on one place and you can have the backup data on another. Right. That's a good example.
I think we can quickly touch on the various solutions what we have in the
Yeah,
market
sure.
and maybe
Sure. You want to start?
Yeah, sure. So I think if I talk about three major public cloud vendors, right? AWS, Google, and then obviously the Microsoft. So they very soon realized that it's not the public cloud way, and they have recently launched. Everyone has launched their hybrid cloud offering. So
Yes.
it's AWS Post, then it's Microsoft Azure Arc, and then it's Google Anthos. But
Yeah.
these are the public cloud offerings. Once we come to the private cloud offerings, right, the two key players are definitely the VMware and the OpenStack. And if you are a customer who is more VMware focused, then VMware has a solution which can also run in the public cloud as well. That's where it gives you an consistent feel of running your infrastructure seamlessly from private to public cloud. So I think these are a couple of the solutions. So based on what a customer or the organization needs are, or what are the outcome they want from the particular solution, we have various solution in our portfolio, and we recommend as per that. So there's nothing one size which fits all. It's completely depends on the customer ask and the outcome what they are looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can say from the Dell's perspective, because that is what I'm most familiar with. So Dell also has a bunch of different solutions. So depending on not only HCI, but we also have traditional appliances. We have vSAN ready nodes or storage ready nodes. We also have some converged solutions, right? VXBlock, and of course then HCI.
Yeah.
where we have AX nodes for from Microsoft. So for VMware, I think that is VxRail.
Yeah.
In terms of so these solutions are largely the same. The end goal or the end game of all the solutions is the same, just to give you the maximum convenience, it is to give you the maximum benefits out of cloud, but while still keeping your data on prem,
Yeah.
right? So, what, in your opinion, maybe so? Why, when should I? So, I am a VMware shop, for example, or I'm a Microsoft shop, and I want to adopt this at CI. Let's say I want to do a data refresh or data center refresh of my data center. What solutions should I go towards? Should I look more into just like at CI? Should I go more into VxRail, or what should drive my decision?
Okay, so I'll put it very simply. Okay, so if you are just or only VMware shop, then definitely something what I would recommend is the VxRail portfolio, what we have. If you are completely a Microsoft shop, then something what I would recommend is the Azure stack. But if you're a customer who has multiple hypervisor in-house, it could be VMware, it could be Microsoft, it could be KVM, anything, then I would recommend PowerFlex from a portfolio because that brings in the benefit of multi-hypervisor. So you can have a single cluster and still you have a choice to run any hypervisor. Once you get into the conversation with the customer and you deep dive into their needs and their requirement and their end code, that's where you come with a better solution. Yeah.
Yes, I have a very quick follow-up question on that. So when you say a VMware shop or when you say a Microsoft shop, what do you mean by a Microsoft shop? So what am I running to be called as a Microsoft shop?
Okay. So especially when we consult any of our customer who are wanting to host on-prem infrastructure, then we also look into the kind of hypervisor they are running. So if their hypervisor, the choice of hypervisor is Hyper-V, that's where we recommend them Azure Stack. If their choice of hypervisor is vSphere, then we recommend them VMware and the VxRail stack. But if their choice is anything, any hypervisor they want, so for people who might be listening who are not well versed with hypervisors, so hypervisor is a software which virtualizes your server. So
Right.
all your different servers, which are different individual hardware pieces, they can be plugged into one, and the power of the entire server clubbed into one is offloaded to the application. So yeah,
Right.
so it depends on the hypervisor what customer prefers to use or run in their premises.
Right. So because I think it only makes sense to be consistent with the technologies that you have. So if you are using Hyper-V, then why not go to Azure, which is also from Microsoft and is also compatible, works very well with Azure and Hyper-V work together, right?
Yeah, because the end goal of the hybrid is not just to run two different infrastructure setup in isolation, but to run in tandem. And you want to run them together so that you can easily move workloads, application data here and there without a lot of rewrite and downtime.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. Well said. Thank you again, Preeti. So thanks a lot for your time. I think we are at the top of the hour, so we should probably wrap up soon. This was a great discussion. I think something that a lot of people have in mind nowadays. So there's a lot of talk about hybrid cloud, hybrid cloud. But then what is it? Why do you need hybrid cloud? When to not use hybrid cloud even, right? So even today, I do promote hybrid cloud, but if somebody says that it gives me a particular use case and I see that, you know what, this is the perfect candidate to move entirely to cloud, I do not hesitate into saying my
Yeah.
recommendation is go to public cloud, don't do hybrid. Because even if you have hybrid and there are uh, advantages to hybrid as well, yes, of course, there are cons, let's say, to running something on prem because you are in control of that workflow or that infrastructure, and that is a double-edged sword, I think, right? So you are in control. That means you can configure it as you want, the policies of your infrastructure. But since you are in control, you also have to maintain it, right? So it goes both ways. There is responsibilities, there are also benefits. So you have to choose wisely as to which one should go entirely to cloud, or which one would you want to keep in your control on your premise.
Yeah, exactly. So before we close up, right, I just have one last statement. There are a lot of customers who think that running workload on public cloud is cheaper always. which is not true, because there are some cases and there are some use cases where we found that running infrastructure or the application on-prem was much more cheaper compared to putting it on cloud. The last comment which I want to make before we close is a lot of people think that public cloud is cheaper, which is not true, because there's some workload where we have found out that running it on premises or private cloud is much more cheaper.
Cool. Thanks again, Priti. So thanks a lot for your time. This was a great discussion.
Same here.
Hopefully, I can well convince you to come on the show again and talk about something. Something.
Definitely. I think this was one of the best use of my Sunday. So I love this conversation.
Well, glad to be a part of it. Cool. Thanks again. Thanks everyone for joining. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all again in the next one.
Have
Thank
a
you.
good rest of weekend. Bye.
Have a nice day. Cheers.